Hi, Jewish Mom. This is going to be my last pep talk for a few weeks until after Sukkot. So I wanted to talk about my experience on Rosh Hashanah, but I wanted to, first of all, by way of introduction, I wanted to tell you something about an interesting experience that I had as a child. Some of you know that I attended a Quaker school, and Quaker is a kind of a Christianity. Although when I was growing up, from 4th to 12th grade, so it didn't really feel Christian. There's no, in my Quaker school, there were no crosses around. There were no pictures of any avodah zarah around. We didn't learn any Christian stories. The one thing that we really did, that was Quaker in its way, is that Quakers, though they have an unusual way, they have an unusual kind of church. The Quakers, they don't have ministers or priests. What they do is the people come, Quakers, they get together every Sunday at a place called a meeting house, which is kind of like the one that we went to. It was a very old-fashioned room, kind of, let's say, reminiscent of, let's say, Amish circa 1850, like that. If there's like an Amish, let's say, meeting room from 1850, that was kind of like the vibe that our school meeting house had, with very old benches and very old pale green pillow cushions, sort of forming a circle around a table with a New Testament on it, with, I guess, like the Tanakh plus a New Testament on it, which I guess was the only Christian thing happening there. But I didn't know that. I don't think I was really aware of what was on the center of the table there, for all the 9 years that I was attending meeting for worship. So basically, we would attend meeting for worship once a week with our class and with another class. We would walk up the hill to the Stony Run Meeting House. And so Quakers they believe in something called the inner light. The inner light, I guess, is what we would call the neshama. And so as children, we would go and we would spend, when we were in high school, we would go and we would spend around 40 minutes sitting in complete silence, in an attempt to, quote unquote, get in touch with our inner light. When I was in college once, I attended a Quaker meeting, and a person there said it was like listening to a radio, and you're trying to get in on the frequency, and you're kind of like a little bit turning the dial until you get in touch with your inner light, Sorry. And so that was the point of meeting for worship, was to spend that 40 minutes trying to turn the radio dial to get in touch with your neshama. But the thing is, this sounds like a very, very nice idea in theory. It's possible that for grown-ups that occasionally it works, but for children who'd received no kind of spiritual education of any kind except for like, okay, you're going to sit for 40 minutes every week in a room with nothing to do except just sit there in silence and trying to get in touch with your inner light. I think for the vast majority of us, it didn't really work. And a funny aside is that when I was growing up, and so when I was in high school, then I was often the one, my friends on the way up, they would say, Jenny, please tell a story during meeting for worship, because otherwise it's so boring. And let me explain. So the only thing that could break the silence of the meeting for worship was if someone would get up, if someone was, quote unquote, inspired by their inner light, and then they would get up and tell a story or share an experience or a thought which had been inspired by their deep inner light. So I almost every week, actually these mommy pep talks are not my first introduction to public speaking. It actually was at the Friends School meeting for worship that I would get up nearly every week and I would share some kind of meaningful story, which are actually, I think, in a way, are somewhat. I think that these mommy pep talks are somewhat reminiscent of the things I used to share during meeting for worship, although far less Jewish, kind of like meaningful in kind of a general way. Um, so, um, but um, but I was so I'm thinking about this right now just because I have been invited tomorrow in honor of the Aseret Yemei Teshuvah to go and speak with my daughter Moria's class with the 5th and 6th graders at her school about my story of becoming religious. So I'm going to talk with them about meaning for worship. But the thing is that I was just thinking. The reason I'm talking about this now is because of that, but also because this past Rosh Hashanah I had a really powerful experience during shofar blowing. I want to tell you about it. During shofar blowing, so when I heard the sound of the shofar, this kind of pleading, calling out in pain kind of sound, almost like an injured animal, I was thinking of various people over the last 2 years who have called out to Hashem, people who I thought of, Rabbi Mark, Hashem Yikom Damo, and Daphne Meir of both of Otniel, who were murdered this past year. I thought of Rav Eitam and Nama Henkin, Hashem Yikom Damam, who were murdered this past year all in terror attacks. And thinking about people in the Shoah who were killed. And I remembered during the shofar blowing, I was thinking of something that I heard from one of my husband's colleagues. I'm a rabbi who teaches together with my husband. I'm an older man whose father was a survivor of Auschwitz. And this rabbi told a story. He said that when he was a teenager, long before he was a rabbi, when he was a teenager, at one point he asked his father, he said, "Dad, tell me the truth. What are we doing here? Why are we religious? Why are we religious at all? You were in Auschwitz, you almost died. You lost your young son in Auschwitz. I lost my brother, there in Auschwitz. Why are we doing this? Why do we believe in God? Why are we religious? What are we doing?" And his father turned to him and said, "You won't understand this, and you probably never will. But God was with me in Auschwitz." And that's what I was thinking of during the shofar blowing. I was thinking of all these people at this, basically when they were dying, people being killed this past year, or people in the Shoah being murdered, and the possibility that it wasn't a moment of feeling abandoned. It was a feeling. It was a moment of feeling the closeness that even at those darkest moments, that Hashem can be with you. And it made me. I was thinking of my own life. Lahavdil. I've never been through such extreme challenges, and may I never experience such extreme challenges. But I have been through some seriously challenging experiences in my life, and during the shofar blowing afterwards, in the days since, I've just been thinking about that, thinking about how I've always experienced, things that there's good experiences and there's bad experiences, and really, it's not so accurate. Really, like, there are experiences, and every experience that happens every day of my life, and everything that happens, whether in my mind I define it as good or bad, everything that happens is an opportunity to connect with Hashem, is an opportunity for me to grow personally, is an opportunity for me to serve Hashem, and Hashem is there. Like, Hashem is. I've been thinking about the famous story, the famous poem called Footsteps, about the person who, when he dies, I'm sure that you're familiar with it, when the person who dies, and then they look back and they see a representation of their life in footsteps on a beach. And he sees, and this person sees that during the challenging times of his life, that there's only one set of footsteps, and during the easier times, there's two. And so he says to God, he said, why during the difficult times did you leave me? Was I on my own? You know? And God explains, you know, when there were regular, you know, the regular times of your life, then I was walking beside you. And during the challenging times, there's only one set of footsteps because I was carrying you the whole time. So I've been thinking about this. Just at first I shared the story about Friends School and about the meeting for worship, is because you can't do that. You can't just put a person in a room. Maybe an exceptional child or an exceptional adult, you can do that. You can just say, okay, sit in a room and get in touch with your soul. Get in touch with your divine soul. You're going to sit 40 minutes a week and you're going to get in touch with your divine soul. It doesn't work. It does. I think for the vast majority of people, except for some, very special individuals, it doesn't work that way. And that Judaism provides an entire framework of a year, an entire framework of living and belief, an understanding of of the way that the world works and the way that spirituality works, which enables us to, as I learned from the meeting for worship, to turn the radio dial and to get in touch with the frequency I want, to get in touch with the channel I want, which is one of connecting with Hashem. And so I want to bless all of you Jewish moms. I bless all of you Jewish moms that this Yom Kippur, this Sukkot, that all of us should be able, through Judaism and through the wisdom of Judaism and through the wisdom of going through this year, which is spiral, taking us as though it seems like the same thing every year. It's a spiral. Every year, if we invest in it and we work on it, then we will find ourselves moving from year to year. It's not just like we're going in a circle. We're going upward and upward and upward. That's what Jewish life and the Jewish year is doing for us. And I want to bless all of us at this Yom Kippur and Sukkot that we should be able to move that dial and get in touch with exactly the channel that all of us are looking for. Bless all of you Jewish moms with a Gamar Chatima Tova, and a Shana Tova, and a Chag Sameach. So we'll be in touch. I'll be making my next pep talk after Sukkot. Kol Tov.